These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Reckless speculation.
That's right. Some reckless speculation returns with a bonus scoop with our guy, Darren Doogie Wolfson, Channel 5 Eyewitness News fame, of course, and also Scoop podcast fame right here on SKOR North. And he joins Mackie and Judd on Thursdays. He joins me on Tuesdays. And we go through the various scuttlebutt in the Minnesota sports scene. Darren, I'll start you here. 7-1 Vikings. What can you tell me about what's going on at TCO? And I think that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah deserves some real applause for the TJ Hockenson trade. 9 catches on Sunday, stepped right in and played great. The type of move that we have not often at the deadline seen the Vikings make, at least effectively, if you go back to the Randy Moss deal that they made in October of 2010.
Well, good morning, Judd. Good morning, Declan. In terms of bringing in talent, Judd, do we need to go all the way back to 1989 Herschel Walker? Now, I get it. The first reaction is the Vikings gave up too much, but the Vikings were not a train wreck with Herschel Walker. So in terms of bringing in talent at the deadline, am I forgetting any move? They certainly have sent guys out. You mentioned Randy Moss, but like in terms of bringing a guy in, do we have to go all the way back? Does anybody else come to mind between 1989 and 2022?
Well, originally, when they acquired Moss from the Patriots, which was in season, and that's when the deadline was earlier, keep in mind. So that was an attempt to bring in talent. It failed miserably. So, but yeah, I mean, the Herschel Walker move, as bad as it turned out, is probably the biggest splash move, maybe easily made in the history of the league at the deadline time. So, yeah, this one, though, to me was very like a savvy baseball move, right? Like just this really, they identified an area where injuries and just, to be upfront about it, weaknesses existed, made a trade that made a ton of sense, and it paid immediate dividends. So the Vikings deserve a lot of credit for being proactive. And I think also, Dukes, acknowledging that this team is probably more successful and better than even they expected. And I think they thought it would be very competitive.
And the NFC is more wide open than almost ever before. Like, it is by far the weaker of the two conferences. It is sitting there for the taking, and I'm fully acknowledging Philadelphia is really, really good. This may be setting up for a Vikings at Philadelphia NFC Championship game rematch in late January. But why not roll the dice? It was always trending in this direction, Judd. Like, we had both heard the steam of the Vikings pursuing another pass-catching option. I texted you. Heck, you can hold up your cell phone if you want. I texted you on Monday, 24 hours before the deadline. What did I tell you then, Judd? I said, my money is on a tight end. I did not specifically know it was going to be TJ Hockenson. It wasn't like it was Hockenson or bust. I mean, they had conversations with a number of teams, but I will give Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah all sorts of credit for being very creative. Like, I was convinced, I said this the last time I was on with you, not last week, just because the flu bug bit me, and I'm still battling some sinus congestion. So, unfortunately, we did not go back and forth last week, but going back 2 weeks ago, I told you my sense was Kwesi was not interested in giving up a day 2 pick. Well, he gave up in the end a day 2 pick, but he needed to get back something in addition to the asset, the immediate asset in Hockenson. So I will give him all sorts of credit for finding a way to get creative to receive some draft compensation back in addition to Hockenson. But yeah, I mean, 9 targets, 9 catches. He worked his butt off. Give David Blau some credit, the former Lions quarterback, the Vikings practice squad quarterback. He spent some good time with Hockenson. But yeah, I mean, it was a whirlwind. I mean, he gets into town, physical on Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. He stayed late Wednesday, stayed late Thursday, stayed late Friday. He is ready to rock and roll. I'll be curious. I'm catching up with Shane Zylstra later today, Lions tight end, who now benefits greatly from the Hockenson trade. I will certainly pick his brain on TJ, but just going back and forth a little bit via text messaging, like I get the sense that TJ was beloved there in Detroit. Like, he was a very popular teammate. I think that will immediately translate here in Minnesota.
I still don't know exactly why the Lions traded him, unless they absolutely positively weren't going to sign him to an extension beyond the fifth-year option, which, by the way, they had picked up. But, from all accounts, this guy is a very viable player. He is a good player. So I'm a little bit surprised in division, but also just flat out that a team that is definitely trying to build traded him. And look, I mean, the draft picks back are fine. And I saw the Detroit GM was quoted as saying, "I would have made the trade if we were 6-1," which I find to be very odd. But anyway,
come on, no way, no.
How crazy extracted Hockenson from Detroit really surprised me. Like, the Lions are dumb, I get that, but that one, I still don't exactly know what the incentive to trade was, especially since you strengthened the Vikings, therefore, hopefully for the Vikings' sake, dropping that second-round pick.
Well, yeah, I mean, that second-round pick, it's not like we're talking pick 40. I mean, we're talking late second round, very, very late second round, right?
Yep.
So, I don't understand their line of thinking. Then you think about 2023, if the idea is, okay, we're really not that far away, even though Detroit's been saying that for a number of years, but hey, we can be pretty darn competitive in 2023. Why would you strengthen a division rival next year? It's a very reasonable number next year, less than $10 million. I also imagine at some point, more so in March, the offseason, but the Vikings are going to have dialogue with Neil Cornrich. My understanding is this is a long-term sort of move. The Vikings haven't had a tight end like this in a while. Maybe early Kyle Rudolph, but certainly Irv Smith Jr. can't do what TJ Hockenson can do. So it's been a while. So the idea is the Vikings would like to keep Hockenson beyond 2023. So just an excellent, excellent move. My sense, Judd, is the Vikings were never close on anything else. They did talk to Pittsburgh about Claypool. They did talk to Denver about their receiving options, the tight end there. They did have conversations with Houston, certainly about Brandon Cooks. Those are all things we discussed going back pre-deadline, going back 2 weeks. But I just don't sense the Vikings were ever close on anything else.
So news broke, I think it was on Saturday or early Sunday, that Brian O'Neill's contract indeed has been restructured, which was not hard to do, but it clearly leads us to the speculative question, the reckless speculation question. What does this mean for the 2022 Vikings? Have you heard scuttlebutt, or can you put on your reckless speculation cap and give us your thoughts, Dukes, about what you think freeing up some cap space does as far as a next potential move, if it can be made?
Well, it's not even a think. A couple people have told me this, Judd. Now, I will say on O'Neill, I don't know if the Vikings had to seek out his permission, his representative's permission to do what they did, but they did, for whatever that's worth.
That's smart, and that's smart.
The Vikings just didn't do it on their own. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe teams have the ability, if they just want to do something like that, they can, but they did seek out permission to do that. So that just tells you the Vikings maintaining a good relationship with the O'Neill camp. I was told by a couple people, Judd, this is just about having flexibility the rest of the year. When you want to elevate guys from the practice squad, just to have enough flexibility. There is an Odell Beckham Jr. steam. I'm sure, Judd, in fact, I'm very sure his name has come up internally. I just don't have this great feeling that it's gone beyond that. Right? And even Odell was on a podcast earlier this week, mentioned a few teams, did not mention the Vikings. There isn't really anything connecting the dots, Odell Beckham Jr. and the Vikings. Now, can you make a case that he could help? Absolutely. I don't think Adam Thielen is 100%.
No.
I really don't. He won't admit that on the record. But think about that 3rd and 13, that play where the Vikings ended up getting the field goal to cut the game's score to 17-10 on Sunday. But Adam Thielen, from even maybe a year ago, maybe certainly more so 2 or 3 years ago, he breaks free there. I think he scores. He got taken down from behind.
He can't turn up field, Dukes.
I understand, 32 years old, Like Father Time is inevitably going to win, but I also think he's a little dinged up. Like I don't even think he's 90% or 85%. So you can
No, he's
make the
not.
case that Odell Beckham Jr., this is presuming the knee is okay, right? But that Odell could really help this team. But I'm just telling you, like, I still struggle to see Odell Beckham Jr. landing here in Minnesota.
And back to your point on the O'Neal contract, Dukes, I think it's interesting, too, that they restructured a contract of a guy who is going to be here long term, and the contract they clearly didn't touch was Kendricks' contract, which I think allows them to alter it without asking, and it's a simple one, and they didn't. So, like, that speaks volumes to the possibility of what this team is planning for 2023 and beyond, as far as allowing them the ability to cut ties with guys too. So like it's a two-pronged game. You certainly are relying on your veterans. You want to keep them happy, but at the same time, you're not going to go into the contracts of the guys who you might be on the fence about for 2023 or certainly 2024.
Yes, although I see Eric Kendricks here next year. Right, I still think he's playing at a pretty darn high level. But yeah, I mean, undoubtedly,
better of late.
Yeah, Brian O'Neill, 100% will be here. I mean, that's a big reason why the Vikings are so good, Judd. Right? They have perhaps the best tackle combination in the NFL, and perhaps the best pass rushing duo in the NFL. Like when you start with that base, when you have the best left tackle, right tackle combination, when you have two pass rushers like Zadarius Smith, Danielle Hunter, like you are going to win more often than you lose. But like you start with that base of having those elite tackles, those elite pass rushers, you are going to be a really good team.
I don't say this lightly, Doogie. Christian Darrisaw, I think right now is on track to be not a Pro Bowl, don't care about the Pro Bowl, an all-pro left tackle. He's having
he's
an all-pro season. It's
Judd,
incredible.
He puts guys on their asses on a regular basis. Like, do you know how rare it is in the NFL to have pancake blocks? I bet he's got to be close this year. Declan, maybe
that's a college
the exact number, but like double digits. Do you think Christian Darrisaw has at least 10 pancake blocks this year? It has to be in that
this
vicinity.
Idea. It's a marketing
You're right.
idea.
It's more
pancake.
Of a college.
Let's do a marketing thing
it's
on
more
pancake.
Of a college stat, not an NFL stat. It just doesn't happen in the NFL.
Right.
But I bet he's close to 10 for the season. Like for him to put guys on their asses is off the charts. What a pick. I wish Rick Spielman would text me back. I'm trying to catch up with Rick in large part just to give him some love. Like, hey, Rick, like this in large part is your doing. And he won't text me back. He texted me back about hurricane, the situation there and how he had to evacuate from Southwest Florida, had to evacuate to Fort Lauderdale. He kept me in the loop on the personal side of things. He just won't go down the road of wanting to talk Vikings with me, though.
He actually will if you're a national guy. So quit your job here. Yeah, get a job with Westwood One or CBS Sports Radio. Call Spielman. He'll get right back to you. He'll give you the whole scoop. He talked about the Hockenson trade nationally. So yeah, just quit your job here. Get a national job, Dukes. You'll be fine. The last thing on the Vikings before we get to the complete debacle going on in downtown Minneapolis, the other side of town. The health's been good so far, but it sounds like, from what Kevin O'Connell said in his Monday press conference, there's a very good chance Cam Dantzler with the ankle is not going to play on Sunday in Buffalo. That being said, Caleb Evans stepped in on Sunday and was absolutely fantastic. I think if nothing else, Dukes, if Caleb continues to play the way that he did against the Commanders, this is a guy who's going to need playing time. That was for a fourth-round pick and a rookie at that position, which is a very tough one. That was an impressive performance.
45 snaps, multiple passes defended. Now, to me, a savvy veteran quarterback would have attacked Evans more. So that's where the Vikings benefited from playing Heineke, at least in my opinion. Like if you're playing Tom Brady, I'm just saying, to me, Evans would have been challenged more. But yeah, you can see it. I mean, there's a legit skill set there. The buzz coming out of Missouri was this kid can play. Like there's a legit future. There's a bunch of middle round, late round cornerbacks undrafted guys really making a dent this year. Like, go across the league, right? Like, it seems like darn near every team has a rookie cornerback making some sort of, presence, known, and hey, finally, Kwesi getting some production from his rookie class. Right now, I get it at Ingram starting right guard, but like, you can make the case that Chris Reed should have been given a chance weeks ago. I like Ed personally, but like, he has taken a turn for the worse going back multiple weeks, right? So finally, like, you look at that rookie class. I mean, that's another just holy cow, 7-1 with like little to no production from the rookie class. But yeah, Caleb Evans in line to start Sunday in Buffalo. Cam Dantzler Sr. underwent an MRI. Like, I'm not even sure he's 100% to play against Dallas a week from Sunday. So keep an eye on that situation. This is not some sort of like catastrophic long-term injury,
Right.
but I just don't know if he'll be back in 1 week. We'll also keep an eye on Dalvin Tomlinson with the calf. I would say there's a better chance he plays than Cam Dantzler, but that's still a little iffy. Like, I can't sit here and tell you on Tuesday morning it's 100% that Tomlinson plays on Sunday.
All right, we have to talk about him. Knicks Wolves last night was just, if that had been one really bad game, I'd be like, okay, it's one game. But it's not. It's a series of games. We began the season talking about the schedule being easier or having a really nice stretch of games to get off to a great start. They didn't. They're 5-6 now. They have played way too many clunkers in those first 11 games. Ant didn't show up last night for most of the game. It looked like he was disinterested in basketball. That was just a complete disaster. I'm going to throw an observation at you, and I'm not saying this is not reckless speculation that this is about to happen, okay? But I'm going to throw an observation at you that's going to be pretty strong, and I want your response to what's going on here.
Sure. I have a feeling I know where you're going, but I'm listening.
I've seen a lot of coaches get fired, and the Wolves played last night like a team of a coach who's on his last legs. Like the team, like that performance that the Wolves put on was basically a vote of no confidence in Chris Finch. I'm not saying he's in trouble. I don't think he should be let go 11 games in. But what do you think, or what are you hearing is going on about a team that a lot of people had huge expectations for? And I know Gobert is out right now, but it's not like it was pretty when he was playing.
Well, if you look at the total body of work, 11 games, Judd, they haven't played one complete game. They've trailed by at least 15 points in half of their games. Last night, Judd, that was like, I'm taking my boys. They don't have school today because their elementary school is an election site, a voting site. And so we're going to go to open gym later today at a health club in the West Metro. That last night looked to me like open gym. Just guys getting together, lunchtime ball.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like with lack of effort. How they don't close out on jump shooters, these wide open 3-point looks that they keep giving up. That began the first game. It's continued through now the 11th game. The body language last night. Still the lack of ball movement, the boneheaded plays, the lack of pace, which starts with D'Angelo Russell. It is really, really bad right now. It's a joyless bunch. Last year was joyful. That team last year was a load of fun. This team is the complete opposite. You're right. Chris Finch is not in trouble. Judd, we are 7 months removed, 8 months removed from him getting a really nice contract extension. They are not pulling the plug anytime real soon. But you're right. Your observation is plenty fair that what we saw last night against New York had all the writings of, we don't want to play for this coach. We are mailing it in. It's time for a change. But I'm just telling the audience, I'm telling you, Chris Finch is not remotely in trouble. In fact, I was over there yesterday at shoot around. Him and Tim Connolly were talking, at a distance, from where us in the media were, but laughing, shooting the breeze, all that good stuff. There's a good relationship there. He's not in trouble. I'm just telling you. He's just not. Right?
And
but this is a complete train wreck right now. I don't know who the leader is. I know Taurean Prince has tried to lead. I think
Taurean
Austin
Prince.
Rivers has leadership qualities in him, but he
Yeah.
doesn't play enough. So I don't think guys are going to gravitate. Now, he was the only guy who showed a pulse last night. Austin Rivers was good last night. I would give him more minutes moving forward. But I do think he has leadership qualities. I was told Rudy Gobert, incredibly likable in Utah, but for whatever reason, teammates did not gravitate toward him, looking at him as a leader. He just doesn't have those sorts of qualities. So it's not going to be Gobert. Last year, clearly, it was Bev. He's now gone. I just don't know who leads on this team, which is a sad statement, Judd, when you think about Karl Anthony Towns being in his 8th season. When you think about D'Angelo Russell being in his 8th season. These guys are now veterans. Lead. Find a way to lead. I just don't think Cat is capable. I just don't. And so I don't know how much better it's going to get. Heck, you look at the immediate future of Phoenix here tomorrow. Now Cam Johnson is out, and Phoenix didn't play well last night at Philly. So that is a winnable game. But then you think about road games at Memphis, at Cleveland, at Miami, at Philadelphia. Now James Harden will be out. But you look at the immediate future, it looks really, really dire. Then you consider Utah keeps winning. Nobody foresaw Utah even being a play-in team. When projecting the Western Conference a month ago, everybody had Utah, me included. I'll admit, I was completely wrong on the Jazz. Everybody had Utah as the 12th or 13th team in the conference. They look legit. There's now enough of a body of work through 12 games for Utah that they are going to be a factor. Maybe not a top 6 factor, maybe more so play-in team, but that bumps a team that we thought would be top 10 below the top 10. Right now, maybe that's Sacramento. Maybe it's as simple as Sacramento. I thought Sacramento would find a way to be a play-in team. I did think Portland all along would be better, but they are way better than I thought. But you look at the landscape of the Western Conference, right? You need to find a way. And I don't want to hear about 4-9 last year, right? Don't go down that road. This, makeup is different. I do think there's something to be said about more of a bullseye being on the Wolves' back, right? When you make a move like Gobert. I mean,
the lack of effort, Dukes, it doesn't explain it.
Yeah, well, and a lack of effort, that doesn't make up for any. That's not going to fix anything, right? So until they play harder, more in sync, nothing is going to change. So don't cite to me 4-9 last year. And by the way, so they got the 46 wins last year, right? Had to scratch and claw to fight off being the 8 seed to at least get the home game in the play-in tournament, right? As the 7, right? The expectations were far greater than 46 wins this year. Now, there is something to be said, for Rudy missing the last 2 games, right? But we're running out of excuses. What the heck did this team do throughout the month of October? We were told when they were in Los Angeles for those 6 or 7 days, it was going to be a lot of kumbaya, but rock solid on the court work. What exactly did they work on in that USC practice gym all those days? I just don't know. I really don't, Judd.
Not defending.
I am baffled at what the heck this team did for the whole month of October. I mean, at this point, Judd, right? I mean, we are 82-11. So what are we? 1/7, a little below, 1/7 of the way through the season. This is a pretty good sample size. And we already know the body of work with D'Angelo Russell. If I'm Tim Connolly, you at least need to start making some phone calls. Tim McMahon of ESPN had an idea on the Brian Windhorst podcast about calling Danny Ainge in Utah. That for whatever you think of Utah still has its eyes on Victor Wembanyama, right? The 7-3 phenom, the number 1 pick next June. Would they consider some sort of package centered around Russell, Mike Conley Jr.? But the comeback to that is, if you're Utah, You want Minnesota to be bad because you have their number one pick. So if you send Mike Conley Jr. here, presumably they are better. Now, he's 35. There's some injury concerns there, but Mike Conley Jr. right now would help this team more than D'Angelo Russell. And a 1-for-1 trade, let me just get this out there, does not work. The money just doesn't work. So there would have to be other pieces. But I'm just saying a deal centered around those two. And I'm not convinced, I'm telling you, I'm not convinced Danny Ainge, who runs the Jazz front office, would do the deal. But if I'm Tim Connolly, I would start being proactive. I would start making some phone calls because I never got the sense that he wanted to extend him. Like an extension never came close. Just the buzz all along was, Tim Connolly was going to let it play out. This was set up for Russell to have a very successful year because he's never played with a big man like Rudy Gobert. But like I was told all along, Russell is Gerson Rosas's guy. He's not Tim Connolly's guy.
Right.
A lot of front office people don't have a healthy opinion of D'Angelo Russell. Gerson Rosas does, right? But like I was never led to believe that Tim Connolly was ever like super interested in extending D'Angelo Russell. So at this point, why not see if there's a deal out there? Make a change if you can. I don't know if it's possible. The sort of deal you would make, Judd, is so Russell is an expiring contract. You would bring back somebody with multiple years. So Mike Conley has multiple years left. So the idea would be Utah could create cap space, more cap space by acquiring Russell, or another team could create cap space by acquiring the expiring contract of Russell. They could send out somebody that's under contract for more than this year, right? So just seek out some sort of deal because at this point, I don't know if it's going to work at the level they think it could work with Russell as the starting point guard. I just don't know how you're a top 4 team.
Great stuff, Dukes, and we'll talk to you again on Mackey and Judd on Thursday. Thank you.
Got it. We'll have some Twin stuff on Thursday as well. GM meetings in Vegas. I know the Twins are meeting with Carlos Correa's representation. The Twins are going to make a bid at some point here, maybe in the very, very near future, to retain Carlos Correa. The question is, how big of a contract offer will it be? They are also meeting with the Wasserman folks. They represent the top Japanese free agent pitcher. His name is Kodai Senga. Kodai Senga. A lot of people like him. The early word is the Twins have some interest in Senga.
Love it. Talk to you on Thursday.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.